Hey, Alabama basketball fans, we had intended to talk to you about the upcoming game against Tennessee. And don't worry, we're going to get to that. But obviously, there have been a few developments off the court that we definitely think takes precedence that we would like to discuss prior to the big game against Tennessee. I'm your host, Michael Sutton from Tide Hoops History. And as always, I'm joined by Emilee Smarr from the Tuscaloosa News and TideSports.com. Some big news broke Tuesday night, and then also a big bombshell actually happened earlier this morning on Wednesday as we recorded this. Emily, I'm going to just toss it to you. I know you've been doing research on this and you've written stories about this. Kind of, if you will, just give the framework of what is going on. And we all know it involves one former Alabama player named Charles Bediako.
Yeah, so what a whirlwind of 24 hours, am I right? Yes, so
Absolutely.
yeah, it's been kind of wild, especially based on what Coach Nato said a few weeks ago about bringing back professional players to the collegiate level. Honestly, I didn't really expect that we would be here, but again, here we are. And Bediako has a 10-day restraining order, only temporary, but effective immediately. He can shoot some hoops with Alabama. These are unprecedented times that we are living in, but it is definitely dominating the conversation on social media.
I think most of the people who are going to listen or watch this, at least from the Alabama perspective, are familiar with Charles. He was the starting center for 2 years for Coach Oats. He was on the 22 team, but more importantly, everyone remembers him from that great 23 team. As that season ended, the coaching staff had the belief that Charles was going to come back for at least his junior year. And at the last minute, he did declare for the NBA draft. Now, unfortunately, he went undrafted. And after that, his career progressed to the point that he did sign, I believe, multiple two-way contracts. However, he never played one true NBA game. He played most of his time in the G League. And I think the catalyst for all of this craziness goes back to just a couple of months ago when Baylor got the eligibility instated for James Najee, who ironically was drafted in that 23 draft, I believe, latter part of the first round. He also never played, but he did not sign a two-way contract. But he played a lot of Euro ball. I still don't understand from the NCAA perspective when they talk about professionalism versus amateurism. The key thing they say is getting paid to play your sport. I don't understand how Euro players and G League players are any different than in Charles's case with a two-way contract and never played in the NBA. But that's a different story. But that's the framework where we're at. So Charles Bediako, petitioned for his eligibility back. I believe he was denied. He since has now had legal counsel with Darren Heitner. I believe he specializes in sports cases, especially along NIL, maybe eligibility. And as of Wednesday morning, Tuscaloosa County Circuit Judge James Roberts, as you said, instituted a 10-day temporary restraining order allowing Charles Bediako to actually be a part of the Alabama basketball team. Now, you and I had a discussion prior to this. I find it very interesting. I want your thoughts on what these next 10 days are going to encapsulate. What can we expect, or what do you expect to happen in these next 7 to 10 days?
Yeah, I'm just proceeding with caution here because again, these are very foreign waters. So who knows what's going to happen? And obviously, the whole deal with the restraining order is that the restraining order would last as long as 10 days, or if there was a hearing beforehand. And there's another hearing coming up on January 27th where I think we're going to see a little bit more finality as to what Charles's future is. This was handled internally at first, right? And when that decision was denied by the NCAA, that's when they took it through the court system.
So with the court ruling Wednesday morning from Judge James Roberts, basically, with the temporary restraining order, which technically allows Bediako to be a part of the Alabama basketball team. Kind of want to get your thoughts on what should Alabama basketball fans or just college basketball fans in general expect over these next 7 to 10 days. What do you see happening? How do you see things kind of just playing out as far as the decision, his status with the team?
Yeah, at this point, there still haven't been any official updates made to the team roster. And even in the University of Alabama's statement that they released, they didn't confirm whether or not Charles was actually on the team yet. They did say that they support him in his efforts to return to college so that way he can complete his education. And there's a large camp of people, for as many people as there are who want to see him play on Saturday, there's a large camp of people who want the NCAA to basically say, well, if you guys play Bediako, then we're not going to grant you entry into the NCAA tournament. so that way there's some kind of penalty. For anybody who was curious, there is a provision written in the lawsuit that basically allows Alabama any or prevents Alabama from having any kind of punishment due to playing Bediako. So I don't necessarily know whether or not the hesitancy lies in, knowing that there's going to be another decision coming up and whether or not it might affect into that decision. Maybe those terms aren't going to be as final until after the hearing on January 27th.
Yeah, I saw the clause that you're talking about. It's basically an indemnification clause, and I think that the way it's worded, I think there probably is a little bit of, I won't say just confidence, but a security of the fact that as long as if they were to play him or let him be part of the team, at least during this point of the restraining order, I don't think there's any retribution that would be done from a penalty standpoint from the
Right.
NCAA. But as you said, always best to proceed with caution. Again, I could sleep at a Holiday Inn for the next month, and I'm not a legal expert, so I can't decipher the legalese or what would be the right path or how to proceed when it comes to something of this nature, because this is, as you said, uncharted territory. What I can say or feel, I agree with you. Alabama right now, regardless of what happens for the rest of the season, and not that the fan base cares, but Alabama basketball, the university will be cast as the national villain. There is no doubt that the rest of the college athletics will actually, for one of the few times, probably be openly rooting for the NCAA to win this eligibility case, which is very surprising. I mean, I just find that just ironic that would be the case. I don't know. Do you feel the same way that at this point in time, Alabama, no doubt, is the evil empire and will be cast as someone that needs to be put down by the NCAA?
I definitely think that there's more of a target on the back of this team, which, given how injury bitten they are, I don't know that that's the best timing. Not that Alabama doesn't normally get everybody's best in the first place, but the timing of this before these next 2 weeks, which are going to be critical for how Alabama turns out come March. The timing is definitely very pressure inducing, for lack of a better term. But yeah, I think that, another thing too, specifically with Bediako's case, is that he's the first player who has signed an NBA contract to return to the collegiate level, or normally what the NCAA's red line in the sand, or at least what their approach was with the former Louisville commit Trenton Flowers, was the fact that Trenton Flowers had signed an NBA contract. James Najee never signed an NBA contract. So the three Exhibit 10s that Bediako did sign, they're not being considered right now because the decision was in the hands of a judge, not the NCAA. And the NCAA obviously ruled against that. But I think that what happens moving forward, especially whenever that hearing comes on the 27th, I think that that's still going to carry a lot of weight then, even though it didn't in this most recent decision.
Definitely going to set some very high legal precedents for the future of the NCAA and their power of enforcement when it comes to eligibility. The NCAA is taking a stand here that it was an NBA two-way contract, which basically means the NBA has the right to, like in minor league baseball, call a player up, send them back down, call them up, send them
Yeah,
back
the
down.
nuance is that you have
Yeah.
an avenue to get to the professional level. And that's why a lot of these other contracts, like, the guys who signed with that G League Ignite league, that was just a developmental league. Even though it was affiliated with the NBA, none of those contracts, even if contracts were signed with them, they did not provide that gateway in order for them to get to the pros.
And again, I am not a legal expert, nor do I claim to be. I've never studied any law whatsoever. I just understand from a business perspective contracts, and lawyers are paid a lot of money to find loopholes in any contract, to find anything that they can pierce to at least twist the legality, or I don't know, just find the loophole to get something through because it wasn't covered specifically. And I'm just wondering from the NCAA's bylaw case, if there's nothing in there that specifically calls out NBA contracts or two-way contracts, but they cite professionalism, getting paid to play for a sports team, that's a lot of muddy waters there. So I can see where a legal team might think they have an opportunity here to poke holes in that simply because the NCAA has allowed it to happen. If they had never allowed any of the G League players or any of the Euro professional players to play, then I think there would be no grounds for this. But by opening the floodgates, I think they have self-created this whole chaos or situation. They brought it upon themselves. At least that's my opinion. Again, I'm not a
Mhm.
legal expert, but at least that's how I
Because I
view it
don't
from
think
a
that any legal
contract.
team would get themselves into this if they didn't know that they could work their way out of it. That's the thing. Like, there's so much gray area here, like you said. that, of course, I mean, obviously I'm going to give reasons as to why this hasn't worked out for other people because of the way that, Bediako's camp went about it. That's the reason why he was able to return. A lot of these things just kind of ended full stop within the NCAA. They took it externally. But even so, at the end of the day, I think that I do think that having a judge in Tuscaloosa definitely played into whether or not Bediako got approved. I don't know that that's going to happen if you go to maybe a town that doesn't love sports or their college as much as Tuscaloosa does.
Well, let's just say the Darren Heitner camp would not have filed this in Lee County. How about that?
Yeah.
I can assure you that that would not have happened. So, again, this is going to be fascinating. Let's follow the normal timeline of events for this week, though. Under normal circumstances, Nate Oats would have a press conference this Friday. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and there's been no mention about any rescheduling. As far as you know, you're expecting the normal
Well, we
noon press
haven't
conference.
normally we don't get the press release that we're going to have a press conference until like less than 24 hours before the day before.
I'm just curious to see if there will be a press conference on Friday, because if there are, I'm sure they're going to have lots of not just the local regular beat writers, but national media trying to dial in or show up or things like that, just simply because of the nature. So I'm just very curious if they still proceed with this press conference or not on Friday.
If you don't proceed with the press conference on Friday, all of those questions are going to overshadow whatever happens against Tennessee on
That's
Saturday
true. All
because
right.
people will ask when they have the opportunity.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So you will have that post game for the Tennessee game. All right. So I tell you what, let's do this. We've done a lot of speculation. We've done a lot of discussing. We've tried to frame everything and put out all the principal players involved in this. So let's get past legal matters and let's actually talk about basketball and what this means going forward. Let's just do this quick hypothetical because I want your thoughts on this. Let's just say Alabama does make the changes. They put him on the team and they opt to have him on the bench Saturday. We come out Saturday. He's in warmups. He does warmups and it looks like he can play. If Charles Bediako were to play against Tennessee, what would you expect to see from him against Tennessee? Like 5 minutes, 10 minutes? What would you think?
I mean, he even played last season for Motor City. I think it was Motor City Cruise.
Well, heck,
So
he played in Birmingham this past Saturday for Motor
yeah,
City
so
Cruise.
it's
Yeah,
it's not like he's out of practice, and he does already know the NATO system. So I don't know that we. I mean, I think if he's available, and also depending on what the situation is in the front court, like is Noah Williamson able to turn on the Noah Williamson that came out against Kentucky? How close is Aiden Sherrell to 100%? Taylor Boboan, how is his hand? What do we see from the front court that might impact how many minutes he were to see if he were to come back? Because obviously he would be the answer for this Tide defense and potentially give this team a completely different ceiling than the one that it has at this point.
no doubt. All right, I'm going to play another hypothetical. Let's just stretch this out that there is a ruling in his favor, and now Charles Bediako is eligible for the rest of this semester, and he's with the team for the long haul. What do you think the coaching staff's plan for having a Charles Bediako available now for the rest of this season? I don't think he supplants obviously Aiden Sherrell as the starter, but I definitely could envision a pretty good division of minutes. Aiden comes off, Charles comes in, maybe it's like 25-15. I don't know. How do you envision that? Again, playing hypothetical that somehow he is reinstated for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Aiden Sherrell has kind of earned his spot with this team. I think that he's earned his respect. So I don't necessarily know that we see I don't know that we see Aiden's minutes get cut to a point where it's like the job is being split full time. I still kind of think that this is going to be Aiden's territory. I feel like there are probably better ways to say this, but it almost just kind of feels like one last joyride for Bediako because obviously he's got all of this professional experience at this point. So it's like we're gonna have a man amongst boys right now.
He was
Um,
23 years old. That's
yeah, he
correct.
is 20 and he will be 24 on March 10th. So that's I think that's gonna be a player there.
Well, I was thinking about this. The 2 years that he played in the Alabama system, obviously Charlie Henry was the de facto defensive coordinator. So I don't know how familiar he would be or how long it would be to pick up whatever Brian Adams runs from a defensive standpoint. And at the same time, also from an offensive standpoint, they used him a lot in pick and rolls. Alabama maybe doesn't quite do that as much from the Chris Fleming side with a big man. So again, would be very curious if he becomes truly an available weapon for this team the rest of the season, how the coaching staff integrates him. That is just going to be fascinating. And of course, the other $1 million question is the overall team chemistry. Is there jealousy? Is there resentment? Is there welcoming? I mean, who knows? I mean, it's hard for either one of us to even, I guess, think about that because we don't know. It's just going to be a dynamic no one has ever seen before. All right, let's do this because I do want to get to the fact about Tennessee because this to me this is a huge game. This is a Tennessee team that you have not beaten since 2022. You are 0-4 against these guys. You should have won last year, and you let that one get away. This is not a vintage Tennessee team. This is their weakest defensive team since 2020, their weakest offensive team since, I think, 2022. So if Alabama's going to get Tennessee, it seems like this is the best opportune time to get them. What are your thoughts as far as the importance for this? Take Bediako off the table, pretend he's not available, he's not playing, and this doesn't happen. What's the importance level of this Tennessee game for Alabama?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, this sets Alabama off to a really good foot with the games that are coming up. After this, you have Missouri, Florida, Auburn, Ole Miss. There are a lot, and Texas A&M too. There are a lot of good opponents that are coming up, and I think that, is 2 wins on the road enough for this team to just kind of get everybody off of their back and have the full belief of the people that are watching them at this point? Who knows? I think that if they get the win over Tennessee, then maybe a little bit more of that confidence will be restored. But on top of that, there's still another matchup with Tennessee coming down the stretch, and they're going to be in Knoxville for that one. And I do still have my questions about whether or not they can pull that one out just because it is such a difficult environment to win in. This is one that Alabama can win at home. And obviously, it's a good chance for them to get back on track in front of the home crowd after the loss to Texas.
If again, I don't want to get too far ahead, but over the next 4 game stretch to finish off these first 9 games, Alabama plays 3 or 4 at home, but it's a difficult stretch coming up. You just
Mm-hmm.
said it. You're going to play Tennessee, who you haven't beaten since 2022. You're going to play a Missouri team that was tied with you in the standings and beat you pretty soundly last year in Columbia. You go to Florida, which is looking like the Florida we all expected now that it's leading the conference, and you're going to get Texas A&M with a new coach and Buckyball. So this is a very difficult stretch coming up, and it starts this Saturday night in Tennessee. What are you going to be looking for specifically? Again, let's just take Bediako off. Let's say he is not playing. It's the same Alabama lineup. Let's say they go with the same starting five they've used for the last couple of games. Who are the key people you're looking for as far as how they match up against Tennessee?
Yeah, Jacoby Gillespie. I want to see how Alabama contains him. Obviously, their top scorer there. But also, I'm really interested to see how Alabama lines up what it has left in the front court. If, depending on how limited Taylor Bowen is, I think that it's going to be interesting to see how they pair up against this front court because you have Jay Carey, you have Felix Okpara. These are two guys who are, right at like 6'11, I'm pretty sure. Very lengthy front court, even though it is, it's not the best Tennessee team that Alabama's seen as of late. It's still Tennessee. It's still a rivalry. And I think that, a Noah Williamson legacy game would definitely help in this instance, I think.
Well, I can tell you that would definitely delight the fans if you had that too as a sidebar. But I was, in that Oklahoma game, if I'm not mistaken, Aiden Sherrell played 31 minutes. I
Yeah.
don't know if the long-term success for Alabama is Aiden Sherrell having to play 31 minutes. His development has been phenomenal, and he's doing
Mhm.
everything far and beyond what we had hoped. But I just don't know. I'm concerned if they think that that's sustainable. I don't know. What are your thoughts as far as his minute count and that high number?
Yeah, well, I think that we even have to go back to the beginning of the season when Oats' whole plan was to basically just do a rotation at the 5 spot so that way they could keep fresh legs. If we were already at that point, like a month in, I don't like the idea of putting all of these minutes on one guy right now. And not only that, but also just knowing how I don't want to say that Aiden is injury prone, but he's a bigger guy. He's more fragile, which is kind of ironic when you consider the the correlation there. But he is a little bit more fragile. Yeah, I don't know, but obviously Aiden's very important to this team, and it makes a huge difference when he's out there. But I don't think that it is a sustainable plan to keep him out there for that long, which is why if they did get Bediako back,
Well,
it would be
if
helpful.
yeah, there is no doubt that the entire burden of trying to carry the front court is now on Aiden Sherrell's shoulders, just basically because of the injury status for some of the players. And again, Noah Williamson, while he had the one great legacy game against Kentucky, still has not shown consistency, and that's a big burden for Aiden Sherrell, even as well as he's playing. I mean that there's still a lot of games left, and there's a lot of physical battles ahead. So
Mhm.
he needs help. He needs help. I'm not worried about the backcourt. Backcourt's going to be fine, but he
Yeah.
needs some help up front. So it's going to be really interesting. All right. Is there anything else from just a Tennessee standpoint that's got your attention? I know probably about 75% of this podcast was dominated by Bediako talk, but I wanted to make sure we at least got him some pregame analysis when it comes to Tennessee because this is a big game. I'm tired of
Yeah.
seeing Alabama lose to these guys.
Really and truly, I wish that I had a more drawn out answer for you, but quite frankly, I've been so buried and engulfed in all of this Bediako stuff that I have not had the chance to do as much analysis as I would prefer. So that is probably what my night's going to be spent doing.
Well, I really appreciate you taking time right in the middle of all
Yeah.
this tsunami of events to at least discuss this. But this is a pretty fascinating topic and one that I know a lot of people are going to be watching very closely. And again, looking forward to hopefully there's a NATO's press conference on Friday. So as
What
always,
unprecedented times to be alive.
and as if there is one, and as you're covering it, we'll be reposting all the little live updates you get so people understand exactly what Coach Oates is saying out there. So. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it. I think we've covered plenty of fascinating topics and hypothetical discussions and actually talked about a little bit about Tennessee. So, as always, Emilee, especially right now with as many stories as you're cranking out, given the media circus that's going on with Alabama basketball, please tell everyone how they can keep up with your work.
Yeah. Emilee_Smarr on X. You could also find me at Emilee_Smart Reporter on Instagram. And New Year's resolution is getting better at doing videos. So hopefully you'll have more videos on there. But I can be completely honest with you and tell you that right now, that ain't gonna happen. So continue to follow me on those platforms, but also you can find me at the TuscaloosaNews.com. Just go to the staff directory, click my name, and you can find all 20 something million articles that I'm doing on Charles Bediako there.
I'm going to have a hard time keeping it up myself, but I look forward to all that.
I'm
And
just a
as
robot
always,
at this point.
yeah. And as always, here on the Crimson Crossover YouTube channel, if you like what we're doing, please do us a favor like, subscribe, and please enjoy all these fun basketball podcasts. I know the other two podcasts obviously are going to have their own takes on the Bediako situation and the Tennessee game coming up. So if you want Alabama basketball this week with a podcast, you are about to get plenty of it. So please enjoy. Come back, join us again, and we'll be back next week. We may or may not be talking more about Charles, but we definitely will be talking about Alabama basketball. That I could assure you. So, as always, I'm Michael Sutton. She's Emilee Smarr. I'm going to say roll tide. She won't. Have a good evening, and we will be back next week.